Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Probably Private. I'm Catherine Jarmal, reporting from a very sunny Berlin today. And we're going to talk today about getting started with ComfyUI. Now, you've seen ComfyUI already if you took the adversarial course, like how do we attack and defend generative models. We use ComfyUI to attack diffusion models. But today what we're going to do is we're going to get started with ComfyUI to generate images locally. But first, I'm going to take you through a little bit of how these systems work because it can be useful for us to know how do these models work. And I'm just here to share with you a few common use cases of when you can use ComfyUI or similar types of generative image. And also now many of them do generative video as well. We'll stay in image because on my computer there is not a chip big enough to generate video with any type of useful fidelity. So we'll go through today generating an image from text. You can also upscale an image. So you can take either an old image and say increase the quality, make it high def, or you can also kind of draw something silly and say, I want you to draw this, right? Like I want you to improve this drawing. So you can do either of those types of things. You can do what's called in painting, which means maybe you cover a piece of the image and you say, I want you to fill it in with this thing instead, right? Or out painting, which basically means the image you pretend is a cropped version of a bigger image and you paint essentially outside of the canvas. Then you can also change or edit an image. So you can do any mixtures of these things to change and edit images. Here's an image that I literally produced in like 90 seconds earlier, right before starting this video. So this watercolor here. And then Civit AI took a screenshot of some of the images there. You can get some inspiration by going to Civit AI. I'm going to put an asterisk here that I've noticed Civit AI also has quite a bit of people making not safe for work images. If that's either going to bother you or also if you are at work right now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend opening it on your work computer. Instead, I would go to it maybe when you're working on local AI stuff at home. Anyways, this video will be fine. So you can continue watching this video. It's a bit unfortunate, I must say also, that so much of the diffusion model content has been really focused on producing essentially sexual images. I'm certain it's because people are making money off of it, but at the same time, kind of is unfun if you, like me, are just trying to see what types of imagery or other fun stuff you can do for non-explicit use cases. So let's start today with how do diffusion models work? Well, diffusion, if you know anything about diffusion, even if you just have a layperson's understanding of diffusion, it's like taking something concentrated and then diffusing it. So it's this concept that is borrowed from physics. And when the initial diffusion models started showing up, they were trained in this idea of noising and then denoising. So diffusion forward pass was we take an image, here an example imaginary image of a plane taking off at an airport, and then we do one time step and we add noise. Another time step, add more noise. Another time step, add more noise. Final time step, most noise. Now, as you can imagine, we could have thousands of time steps. We could have 10 time steps. But that was the general idea, is that if we add noise, and especially if the noise that we choose is sampled from, let's say, Gaussian distributions, we should be able to use essentially differential equations to model these forward steps between no noise to lots of noise. And then if we can do that, we should be able to learn a way to then go backwards to essentially take something noisy and then try to learn what is the noise here and then remove it. and remove it and remove it until we get something like the image. And we could do this for the whole image, or we could also chunk the image like is sometimes done in computer vision, right? And we could just take the chunks and denoise each chunk. These chunks could be overlapping, they could be separate. These were all different types of experiments that computer vision people did. And most of what you're using today when you say I'm using a diffusion model is actually just the denoising process. So it will start with some sort of stochastic or random noise, or maybe even sampled from something. And then it will try to do this reverse and essentially remove the noise and target towards whatever text you typed in or whatever the task was, right? So upscaling the image, painting something in here, producing an image from nothing, right? It's going to try to move in this direction. And how does it perhaps know what directions? Well, the whole concept of diffusion and now numerous of today's top generative AI image models are also based off of flow models or some sort of flow and diffusion combination. Now, I'm going to link a really cool course that I liked on diffusion and flow models. If you want to learn more about them, I recommend taking that course. I think it's only 3 hours or so from a PhD student who works on these things. Anyways, it's a really great course, but I'm trying to summarize the most important parts for you. When we think of a flow model, we essentially have, again, state 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we try to go from maybe some sort of starting distribution of points towards a known end distribution. Now, if you've done Bayesian learning, this should remind you of like Monte Carlo or random walks, these types of things. Maybe you also even studied flow models. If you did those things, then that's great. You can use that kind of knowledge in your head to understand how these models works, or to choose why you want model A versus model B. Some of them are built with flows, which essentially means we can think of forces working, pulling on these dots. We have this starting noisy distribution, but we know that the learned representation of this distribution looks more like here on the right. Well, how do we step by step pull these towards the actual learned distribution? That's how we do it. And when you think of it from how these are trained, the flow models is we have, let's say, our text embeddings. We have the image that is represented by those text embeddings. We may or may not even have segmentation where we can know that certain things are represented in certain parts of the image, right? We can make it more or less complicated. And then we can essentially learn, okay, how do I go from a picture of a dog to a picture with a dog with a frisbee in a meadow jumping, right? And we can try to learn what is the representation of all of those different words in images, and then learn to reproduce them in our deep learning model. I hope that was useful for you. Let me know in the comments. Let me know questions you have in the comments. I have shared before, I will share again. I am not a computer vision expert. I come from the language world, but at the end of the day, we're all doing deep learning. If you want to add something that you know about these models in the comments, please do. But let's try it out, right? So let's jump in and try it out on ComfyUI. I'll open it up. You can download it from the website. It's free and open source. Okay, and so here we can see my ComfyUI dashboard. It's a bit zoomed out, but you can zoom in using all the normal controls. This is literally, I wanted to give you a nice introduction. So this is literally from the getting started examples, which come shipped with ComfyUI. It's using, in this case, at least at the time that I installed ComfyUI, a particular set of models. You're going to have to download them first. You'll be able to see how to download it in the guide. So in case they change it, I'd rather you follow their documentation. We can see here the image that I literally showed you a minute or two ago. So we'll zoom into the prompt. Oops. We'll zoom into the prompt. And I have a new prompt to try out. So my new prompt is a woman is working on her computer. She has a purple plushy hoodie. She's in a space station. You can see planets around, but she's not wearing a spacesuit. She's comfy and happy. Her feet are resting. There's beautiful quiet lighting and maybe some interesting plants. So it's just an idea. I'm still learning what works best with these models. But once I have my prompt in there, I can hit run. As it's running, it will start to highlight things, but there is a way to zoom in to where it's running. So we can view more by clicking, sometimes double clicking works, but also this works. And we can watch in here as it goes through. So you'll see it at some point in time, load the model, choose the image size, evaluate the prompt. So encode the prompt into text embeddings. Then it's going to call the model, obviously, load the model onto whatever chip you have. So again, if you have a local AI setup or you're starting to get one set up, by the way, I have a video on that. But also this could be running on a much bigger GPU, load the model on that. Then it's going to do a sampler. This is essentially going to go through those time steps, either the denoising time steps or the flow time steps or some combination of both. Eventually, it's going to decode that back into an image. And you can play with a bunch of these things. Now, there's a bunch of guides on how to use these. If you're a little bit more graphically inclined than myself, you're probably going to have some strong opinions about how many steps, what type of model, what type of sampler, what type of denoising, right? And I encourage you to play around and find what works for you. Obviously, increasing the steps is going to increase the time, but it might also increase the quality. So you might want to just play around and check those out. You can go back to your main workflow by clicking up here. And you can see that I can also look at the queue, right? So I could be starting multiple workflows at the same time. ComfyUI will manage those for me. And if I wanted to, I could have this running on a server and I could actually point my local ComfyUI towards the server backend. So there's a way to set that up if you want this running on your GPU computer, but to be using it from, let's say, your quote unquote non-GPU or normal computer. Depending on the quality of the image, the length of your prompt, what models you're using, all of these can affect how long it takes. One thing I will say that I've noticed, another interesting thing is you might want to start storing your prompts, starting to notice what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what things do you like that you want to reuse. And also, you might want to start also storing side-by-side comparisons. This is this model with this prompt. This is that model with this prompt. So you start to know, okay, for example, when I'm working on this type of project, I want to use these models or I want to use those models. And there's a bunch of really interesting guides from people that are graphic artists on how they integrate this into their workflow. Personally, as somebody that works in privacy, I think it's great if we had more artists using these tools for their own purposes and we were using then the artist's own designs directly. I do believe that we still have to support creators, writers, artists, musicians when we're using generative AI. Okay, we're in the last step for our sampler, essentially reaching our end point of our image. We should see it shortly go to the decoding step and then be able to watch the image appear. I did, by the way, pause the recording for a bit. I only have one chip on this computer, and that means obviously when I'm screen recording and audio recording and running diffusion, the computer gets a bit busy. So that basically means for you, if you, like me, only have one chip or one GPU that you're mainly using, you might want to decide, okay, am I working on image tasks or language tasks, or how do I want to split the work? All right, we're decoding. I'm going to go back so we can see. And here we are. So we got our woman working. We have some plants. She's on a space station. She's in a purple hoodie. It looks pretty cool, I gotta admit. I'm a little bit impressed. The only thing is we didn't quite get the feet on the seat. Might not have a lot of space station examples of that in the data set. But I'd love to see if you can improve on my prompt. If you generate a cooler image, please share it in the comments. I'm always excited to see what you're making. And yeah, play around with ComfyUI. If you have other tips for other people getting started, please share them. And if not, then I'll see you next week. Please subscribe if you liked this content, like, subscribe, all of the normal things that you already know about, but it definitely helps me keep making stuff that's useful for you all. All right, I'll see you next week. Ciao.